Welcome back to the One Chart at a Time video series. We are going to talk about Gantt charts today. And if you do any sort of project development or budgeting, you've probably used a Gantt chart before to sort of track out the stages of the proposal or the budget. But there's lots of ways that you can use a Gantt chart to show different types of data. And as we're going to see in today's video from Sarah Slobin at Reuters, there's lots of different elements that you can include in a Gantt chart to visualize your data. And then there's also a little bit of an interesting story behind the origin of the Gantt chart. So I'm going to hand it over to Sarah so you can learn more about this particular data visualization.
Hey, John, thank you for inviting me to your One Chart at a Time series. Today, I'm going to talk about Gantt charts. So, what I want to do is explain a little bit about how they work, how you can best put them together, show you a couple examples of how they can be used, and because I actually didn't know why a Gantt chart was called a Gantt chart until I agreed to talk about them, I looked that up and I found a little bit of really interesting history and some surprising usage of Gantt chart from back in the day, which really differed from what I know about them and what you may know about them. So I'm going to share that with you a little bit today. Okay, so what is a Gantt chart? A Gantt chart is essentially a series of bar charts that are organized. The organizing principle is time. So you can think of them as a series of timelines where the horizontal axis is time and the vertical axis is, or are, things, events, people that are happening in time. Okay, so it's a little bit abstract without taking a look at them, but let me back up a little bit and tell you, share with you my screen. Okay, so this is what most people think of when they think of a Gantt chart is they think of it as a project management tool, and there are literally dozens of software programs available for project managers to create Gantt charts to keep teams organized. This is the most popular way Gantt charts are used. This may be how you know about a Gantt chart, and it's came about because of in the 80s when PCs came online and everybody was able to share. Use shareware, they were able to share Gantt charts so they could see where other team members were in the process of whatever the project was. As the internet exploded and as tech exploded, they continued to be a popular way for project management for teams. However, there's a lot of things you can do with Gantt charts that are not just project management or teams, or managing teams. So let me share with you. Let me share with you. Okay, it's a little bit of a blew it a little bit there, but forgive me. So this that you can see now, if you're seeing my screen, is a chart that Stuart Thompson of the opinion section of the New York Times made, and it's a Gantt chart. And very simply, what this Gantt chart does is show you when people are going to get vaccinated. Again, time, horizontal axis, events, vertical axis, right? So seeing this, I think it gives you a real clear picture of, how do you put together a Gantt chart. So I'm just going to walk you through that quickly, okay? So basically, here's the template. You have time across the bottom, and then you have teams. This is a project because it's a simple way, again, to show you what a Gantt chart does. But so let's just say you've got a project that has to be done, and everybody, you go down the line and you call them up and you say, okay, when do you plan to start and when are you ending? Or, can you start by X date? And you have all that information, which you can plot on the chart, which is point A to point Z, right? When people start and when people end. But visually, that doesn't get you much. That just gets you, okay, here's what everybody's doing. And this is really not organized in any specific way. So let's think about organizing it. We can organize it by teams. So I've added a little bit of color here just to show you, okay, let's say we have 3 separate teams of 7 here. And the color indicates the teams. It still, again, doesn't show you anything, right? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clump things together. And what I've done next is I've organized things. I've put the teams of people together. So this is a little bit more clear. You can begin to see that the yellow team is the early team, and the green team is the middle team, and the blue team is the tail end of things, but you still don't really see much about what's going on because the data are not organized by time. And again, a Gantt chart, time. This is the chart organized by time. So once you sort of are more muscular with the way you organize the data, and you say, okay, I'm going to put the earliest one first, I'm going to organize it by time, by team, you end up getting a pattern like this. Okay? And that's part of why Gantt charts are helpful, because they allow you to see what's happening in multiple spaces across multiple teams or multiple events, what's going on. So let me show you an example of that. Now, to this point, I keep saying time is on the horizontal axis, but what if you wanted to design something mobile, for instance, or what if you had something that you wanted to say a little bit more about? I'm going to see if I can share another screen. Okay. So what you see here is a graphic made by a colleague of mine at Reuters. This is Ellie Levine's work, and this is something she did at the beginning of the pandemic. And what Ellie was looking at is, when did these social distancing measures come into place state by state? But she's also going to add another layer of information to the Gantt chart, right? And what she's doing is she's looking at the number of confirmed cases as well over time. And instead of organizing time on the vertical axis, or the horizontal axis rather, she's done it on the vertical axis, right? So here you see when state of emergencies. Do you remember this? February 29th, state of emergency, first state of emergency, and all the stuff was happening, and there was ships. Remember, there was like cruise ships, and okay, and then somewhere you get in here into limiting the size of gatherings. That's in somewhere in March. Schools start to get closed. So again, very COVID focused data, but here it is with the restrictions going into place. And again, this is a Gantt chart with the stay-at-home order down here, and Ellie has used time as well and events, and she's added another layer of data. When I was putting this together, it also made me think of this other chart that we did back in the day. Let me pull this up for you guys so I can find it. 1 second. Sorry. Nope. Okay, here we go. So let me just share this with you. So when I was putting together, when I pulled out Ellie's chart and I saw it, I had this sort of memory of this other chart that we did back in the day when I was working with the New York Times, and it's a similar exercise. What you have here, again, these are the transcripts from the cockpit recordings from the planes in 9/11, and you can see time this way, again, is organized in a vertical fashion. And in this case, it's because we're working on print. Icons are added as well that show routine communications, deviations from flight paths. At the end you come up with crashes. So again, this is not what you would think of as a Gantt chart, but it's a Gantt chart. So Gantt charts, what are they? They are a series of timelines. They're data that are organized by time and by events. And of all the charts in the chart series, this is a chart that has this weird name, which is Gantt, which made me wonder. I had no idea what is Gantt, right? Who is Gantt? So let me tell you who is Gantt. Gantt was that guy I actually had up on my screen earlier. Let me share Henry Gantt with you guys. Now, very briefly, really interesting. Henry Gantt, he's this engineer, and this is back in the turn of the century. This is like 1910, right? So Henry Gantt is this engineer, and he is interested actually in workers and how productive they are. This is back in the day when they decided that in terms of industrial society, you could actually use science and data and apply it to industry and get better results from your workers. So Henry Gantt writes this book called Wages, what's it called? Work, Wages, and Profits. And he publishes it in 1910. And what he's done is he has done this study. See if I can show it to you. He has done this study of people working in a textile mill. And he is looking, what he's trying to figure out is not just efficiency, but if you pay a worker a living wage, will they then become more productive? So what he does is he creates, let's see if you can see these. This is a very early Henry Gantt chart, one of the early charts, and what he's charting here these are all the spoolers working in the factory. This is a textile factory, and if his notes back on the bottom, actually let me see if I can find the key in here. The black is bonus, the red is bonus lost, the X is an absent day, and so he has this theory that workers will not work if they do not think that they can't earn any better wages. So even with piecework, if you make everybody earn the same thing, everybody's just going to do the same job, even if you're faster at it, even if you're better at it. And then in his book, he also says, and what happens if workers are dissatisfied, they form unions, and the unions make demands. So he has this idea of, what if you give your workers a bonus? And he tracks in the Gantt chart actually giving the workers a bonus. And this is one of the examples. I'll show you a couple more, but he says this task, he says to note the disappearance of the slack Saturday habit and note the improvement following the establishment of a bonus to the head weaver in early July. I think the head weaver is sort of down on the bottom here. But what he tracks is when bonuses were given to these people, and then he shows the fact that after the bonuses started arriving, people started coming to work more and doing a better job. This is just another example from Henry Gantt's book. This is the weaving room. These are the weavers. And what he shows is that they stop, let's see, the habit of industry has become fixed, right? So the more black you begin to see, the more people are actually doing a good job. Because? Why? Because bonuses. This is another one, task, and this is the filling winders. These are the people who are winding the thread. And it's the task and bonus record of workers winding weaving bobbins. And he says, note disappearance of the habit of slack work on Mondays. So apparently workers were not showing up on Mondays. If you give them a bonus to work through the week, they will show up all week. So this, you guys, is the original Gantt chart. Henry went on to consult with the munitions industry. He was hired by a general to help him organize munitions in World War I. But just jumping back to his book briefly, one of my favorite things here is how to draw a Gantt chart. He shows the length of time, right? The length of line. And then he shows you figure 6, lettering pen used for making Gantt charts. So just be happy that you don't have to organize your Gantt charts with a pen, but I hope you enjoy making them and can think about different ways of using them. And that's really it. I hope, did I stop sharing my screen? Yes, I did. I hope this is helpful. And again, John, thanks for having me in your One Chart at a Time series. Okay, bye-bye. Take care.
And thanks, Sarah, for that great review of the Gantt chart. As you can see, there are just lots of examples of ways that you can take a chart like the Gantt chart and expand it by using different colors, using different shapes, using different icons. So that really goes for a lot of the charts that we're talking about, that we can really expand them in different directions and in different ways. And it's also useful to know where the origin of some of these graphs come from. And in this video, Sarah talked about Henry Louis Gantt, and I talk about him in my forthcoming book. And so when we come back tomorrow, we're going to learn more about ways that you can visualize changes over time. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.